This is Eric Beyer of Old Vine, Texas, a new winery tasting room featuring 100% Texas wines from wineries all over the state. We are located in Mansfield, Texas, inside of Ancora Event Center on Broad Street. We have weekly tastings, charcuterie board to enjoy, live music, and a new wine club. Go visit our website at oldvinetexas.com to sign up for our newsletter and learn more. Or you can find us on Facebook and Instagram at Old Vine, Texas. We'll see you soon.
Welcome back, everybody, to We Know Texas Vino. I am your host, and today we're coming to you from a very beautiful place. We've been here before at William Chris Vineyards, and today we got a special guest host today. Who are you today?
Today I am Kelsey Kramer. Yesterday I can't say the same thing, but today still Kelsey.
Today's Kelsey, okay. And then of course we got my parents here.
Oh, what? Everybody knows me. I'm going to introduce myself.
He got his name today, too.
Yeah. No.
And then, of course, my mom.
Hello.
So we're actually having a special episode today, and y'all probably all remember the episode with the Texas grape growers, right?
Texas wine growers.
Wine growers. Mm-hmm. I always get that mixed up. Texas wine growers. And Kelsey was on there with John Rivenberg and Betty and
Andrew Sides.
And I'm trying to remember the other guy's name. I just went blank. He said right between you and John. So we just forgot names.
No, I genuinely can't remember who else was there with us.
I know there was five of y'all, 5 or 6 of us there.
I know. Blake DeBerry.
Yes.
Yeah.
There we go. Man.
I can't forget Blake. He was the quietest on the podcast.
He was the quietest one. But if you remember, you saw Kelsey there, and Kelsey does all the education here in Texas, and so she and I got talking after the show, and we talked about doing a couple of educated podcasts for Texas. We Know Texas Vino, and so here we are with Kelsey here. Kelsey has a great segment for y'all set up, and so pretty well, I'm gonna let her run the show, and then I'm gonna do my traditional fashion and just ask random questions, and we're gonna see what happens on the show. Aren't we?
I love the random questions.
Random questions are the best part. So
it's what gets the juices flowing.
Oh yeah, most definitely. So Kelsey, tell everybody a little about what you do here.
Okay.
And what the goal of what the Hill Country Wine Academy was about when it first was conceived. Well, that sounds kind of weird saying that, but but just kind of give our listeners what it's all about.
Sure. So my background is in international wine and actually acting. And more recently, I've entered the Texas wine industry. And I had a goal prior to the Hill Country Wine Academy ever forming, and that was to reconcile what it is about Texas wine that makes it what it is, that makes it taste so different than anything else that I had experienced. So when I joined William Chris Vineyards, I was a tasting room ambassador, and I was trying to answer this question and setting up educational opportunities for people to kind of make the rest of the world meet with Texas. Mm-hmm. And soon after that, I became the director of education. We started what's called the William Chris Wine School, and that started with our WSET program. That was the origin, the core of the entire program was to offer this certification program that's recognized internationally that Texas producers and ambassadors and winemakers would benefit from, because it helps people make sense of what's happening here in Texas by looking at the world of wine and then figuring out how Texas fits into it. WSET does not teach about Texas wine, especially in the first few levels. You're learning about everything but Texas wine. And so we continue to develop the program, and this is what I've had a really close relationship to, is building out the Texas portion of that with things like the Texas Wine Ambassador certification course. And so that's the mission: help reconcile Texas within the rest of the world of classic wine.
Nice.
That's the question we're trying to answer every day.
So is Texas the only state in the United States that you know of that has its own certification program just for Texas region wines? wines? I'll spit that word out.
No, California does.
Okay.
There are different types of programs. I can't say that they're all certification programs, but there is absolutely fantastic formal New York wine education, Washington wine education, Oregon wine education.
Okay.
I have had some people in other states that are a little bit newer and trying to build up a region and a personality for their region, reach out to ask what it took to build a certification course for the region. And so what my assumption is that more will come, but we're certainly not the first.
Okay, interesting. And so the certification program, is that like a state recognized certification, or is it just like, William Chris made this? It's recognized through the industry type certification.
Yes. William Chris created it for their own ambassadors. So WSET was brought on for the ambassadors to become trained. We opened it up to guests in industry, and there was a lot more interest than I think we expected in getting the formal education. There's a lot of education that happens along the road every single day. Going and doing a tasting is an educational session. And so to have something so formal be that desired showed us that these more formal courses are really important for people to have. The Texas Ambassador Certification course was offered first for our team, but demand allowed us to open it up to others. This is a William Chris Vineyards thing. We worked with other producers. We've worked with Texas wine growers. We've worked with Texas Hill Country wineries to build something that fits the larger group of Texas producers rather than just teaching about what William Chris does. So it's not formally recognized, but it has been widely accepted, which I'm happy to say. We have almost 1,000 people certified through the Texas Ambassador Certification course.
You need to definitely get a pat on your back for that one. Good job.
Oh, wow. It's been fun to see the response to it and learn from it, and then be able to answer that excitement and interest in more with an advanced certification course. So we'll be, I don't think I told you about this yet. We're launching the Advanced Ambassador Certification course in September. So it's coming soon. And that's entirely due to people asking for more deeper levels of knowledge and, spending more time in the classroom, which I am always happy to hear as someone who is 100% of the time dependent on people being interested in sitting in class. Well,
and one of the things I'm proud about the show here, and you and I've talked about this off camera, is I love education. Like education when it especially comes to wine, because a lot of people just don't know. And when they come into the tasting room, they desire that knowledge to understand wine, whether it's a Texas wine, whether it's California wine, whether it's old world wine. Yeah. They desire that knowledge. And what's really great about doing that is you tell them something and then they go to their friends and they're like, oh, guess what I know about wine? And it makes them seem smart. And then they tell somebody else and it keeps passing along. And eventually they start wanting to know more and they'll start looking and they start finding interest. And then they want to take certification classes. And next thing you know, we have a whole slew of new people coming in.
Well, can you explain to the listeners and viewers out there what the certification does?
Of course.
A lot of people that are listening may not know, because this is all about education and learning. So explain to them what the certification is going to be about.
Yeah, certification courses, there are all kinds and they all happen in different ways. We've based our, the way that we give the certification course for the Texas Ambassador specifically is matching what WSET has built, the Wine and Spirits Education Trust, that we're an approved provider of WSET courses. And they have a level 1 course that is 1 full day. It's 6 hours of guided learning plus lunch and breaks, and then an examination as well. And so we built the Texas Wine Ambassador Certification to match that format.
So what do you do through the level 1?
We go from the ground up. Level 1 WSET and Texas Ambassador start with what is a grapevine, what are the constituent parts of the grape, skin, seeds, juice, what all components do those offer to wine. We go through the basics of winemaking. We go through how to taste wine. And then from there, WSET splits off in one way and talks about the world of wine and wine theory. And the Texas Ambassador course splits off in another way and talks about Texas regions, pairing food and Texas wine together, which is something that I'm happy that we're going to talk about today. And then we go
That's the fun
into
part.
patterns that you find in Texas wine that you can use to explain to somebody else in a concise and meaningful way. That's the intention of the Texas Ambassador course, is if you're giving a tasting to someone, whether it's in your home, in a formal tasting room, if it's a virtual tasting, that you're able to capture the major patterns of Texas and relay it to another person in a meaningful way, which is often not in a lecture format. So it's what causes someone to lean in and ask for more information. So we go over region, history, climate, terrain, all the theoretical building blocks that can give you, a great understanding of Texas wine without having to go too deep. And then the advanced Texas Ambassador gets you to the next level. And then you go really deep.
Do you find other states, like you said, that are ramping up there, and maybe somebody plants the idea about doing vineyards in that state? Do you find that these are looking at Texas for guidance because
Good
of
question.
the history? I mean, the whole industry is pretty young compared to the world.
Yes.
But yet the strides that are being made. And so, as you were talking about educating the people outside the state, and that brings them more aware of, case in point, you're talking about knowing the vine. They take that knowledge back and go, this vine's not going to work, but this one does, and we can do this with it. And then that just literally it's a seed.
Yes.
So my question goes back to, do you find that a lot of people from outside Texas are saying, hey, what kind of programs do you have? Where can I'm ground level, help me?
Yes, I do. It's been really unexpected too. We see that there's an interest in Texas wine education because it applies to more than Texas. First of all, people are so surprised to hear that Texas wine is a thing, but also they can taste really exceptional Texas wines, and many of them, and they're consistent. But it's more than just the taste of Texas wine that is interesting. Like you say, there are things that we're having to do in Texas that make it seem not possible to others, that are giving hope to regions who are struggling through picking out the grape variety, struggling with grapevine diseases that, sometimes come and go and sometimes are ever present. Rootstock decisions, which is the base of your vine, is typically on a rootstock that's not part of the original vine, and you graft them together in order to get some sort of suitability to a certain type of climate or soil or whatever. All of these principles relate so much to Texas because it's so difficult to grow here. So yes, the interest that we're seeing is coming from California, Las Vegas, Washington has had a lot of the same hurdles that they've had to jump through. In Texas, it's even more unpredictable to grow here. And then we're seeing interest from Italy. I had a conversation with a fellow wine judge that lives in Moldova, and another couple people from the south of France who are working with the same grape varieties as us, but see it as not possible to grow in Texas. Then they taste the wine, and it opens up a broader discussion of what I think is the future of Texas wine, and that many of us do. It's not just me. I'm not the sole believer of this, that Texas is the future of wine. What we're doing here will help other states and other regions figure out how to make best practices early. Best practices, not perfect practices. Better practices for selecting grape varieties that make sense earlier on, which is something I wish Texas had. We would have had a longer modern history of Texas wine if we had figured out all of these things earlier.
Well, if you have anything to do with anything, so somebody's been like someone from Italy, they have a history, but if they're a pro, they want to learn more. So reaching out and say, well, what works for you? And just in the short time that we've been associated with Will and the expansion and the knowledge outside the state line and the attention. Have you tried this Texas wine yet? I mean, we've talked to individuals about Japan. It's just bring it on. We want this. And then other areas, Will has talked about meeting some people from Europe that have come in there. And at first they kind of scoff, and then they go, this is pretty good stuff. So I applaud your education, because that's what it's all about. It's like Will was saying, you've got to put the word out. And then another thing I like about the community, excuse me, is everybody shares everything. How did you do this? Hey, I'm having this problem.
Yeah.
Well, hey, or I use this piece of equipment, or, oh, don't use that. Do it this way. But then you take that and make your own wine out of it.
That's what we're finding with our courses is there's such a desire to pitch in and give personal perspective, so that when the Europeans are asking for a taste of the wine and then saying, why does it taste this way, that many people can answer that question, and cause for a longer, larger discussion to happen. The pitch in to answer that question is really wonderful.
So, funny story about the whole European stuff. So I had a gentleman come into the tasting room the other day. He's from France, and he was looking at the menu. He goes, "Oh," and I don't have a French accent, so I can't mimic his French accent. But it was very thick.
Thank
and
you.
He goes, "Oh, y'all have a Pig Pull Blanc here?" And of course, very French. Think of Benny with her accent, okay, but thicker. And he goes, "Oh, you got a Pig Pull Blanc." And I'm like, "Yeah, I do. You want to try it?" He goes, "I don't know if I want to like it," because he said growing up in France, there was a Pig Pull Blanc vineyard right in front of his house. And so I poured him a little glass of it, and he drank it, and he goes, "This is Texas?" I said, "Yes, sir, it is." And he goes, "This is probably the best Pig Pull Blanc I've ever had outside of France."
Way.
Outside of France. And I'm like, wow. And that was very much of a compliment, and he ended up buying 2 bottles of Pig Pull Blanc to take back with him to Europe.
Awesome.
Is that not crazy?
If it made it back to France.
Well, I don't know.
Yeah. Pig Pull Blanc doesn't last for very long after you purchase it.
Yeah.
It goes very quickly.
Yeah. So, we actually went a lot longer on that part than we expected, but it was good because I like this information. I mean, you're very knowledgeable at what you're doing here. Obviously, you and I both enjoy what we do here because we both thrive on educating, not ourselves, but also other people. And that's the whole purpose of this podcast is education.
It's an obsession.
It is.
Yeah.
Actually, what's kind of funny is I stopped learning IT and started learning more grapes.
Everyone should do that.
I know. It's more fun drinking wine while trying to learn. Yeah, we won't talk about that one.
It helps all the information sink in really deep.
Sometimes.
That's what
it bounces off.
So you actually had a nice little show lined up, and we took, again, I'm okay with taking this a little bit of time because we got to know you a little bit more, and our listeners got to understand you and know who you are a little bit more. So you actually we have a 2-part show. Mm-hmm. So you had something actually lined up for us. So I'm going to let you take it away, kind of explain what you want to teach, and let's go from there.
Okay, sounds good. I'll tell y'all first what I brought in to talk about today, and then y'all let me know whether you want to talk about something else, because no matter what, I can talk about wine for an hour, no problem.
Well, you got 2 hours, so you can do that.
Perfect. The first topic that I chose is a question that we like to answer before anyone comes into class, and that is, how do you become a better taster? It's really simple. It's something that breaks down into a really complicated process that includes all your senses and your memory. Mm-hmm. The way everything comes together defines how you taste wine in the first place, how you make it personal to you, and then how you use that information to do things like blind tasting, and get accuracy. Even though wine is personal, if you train to blind taste, the wine can be the same for everyone, and we can all come to the same conclusion about it, despite the fact that wine is personal. And the second thing that I wanted to talk about today is food and Texas wine. And that is a really fun discussion that ends up covering things like Texas wine history and terroir and climate. So that's a mini Texas wine 101 class with food as the setting that we talk about it in.
Right. Well, I tell this to a lot of people on and off the show, that wine is the cheapest thing in the world that you can travel with and never have to leave your living room because it will take you to a different time and place in life. It will bring back memories. It'll make you want things. It'll make you want to say, I'm drinking this tonight. And you're like, man, I would really like to go to Argentina for whatever reason, It's
like a plane ticket.
Yeah, it's a plane ticket. It's the cheapest thing. It's $50.
$50.
And you can enjoy it. And then when you finish it, you're like, man, I want to go on that trip again. And you got to go buy another bottle. Or a case.
Or a case. Always a case.
So, all right. So let's talk about starting out, getting ready for class.
Yeah.
So what are some things that people, but not just even for class, let's even talk about coming to a tasting room.
Daily life.
Yeah, daily life. I know for me personally, when I first started drinking wine, my palate started changing, and it changed a lot. I was eating a lot of fast food, a lot of greasy stuff. And when I started drinking wine, I stopped eating a lot of fast food and a lot of greasy. I can't give up the Mexican food, sorry, or the Whataburger, or Taco Casa. But my palate has changed drastically. The food I like to eat now is, I wouldn't say cleaner, but it's a little bit more palate friendly. Where when you eat something, one of my favorite dishes I like to cook is chicken piccata risotto. Okay. And I like to deglaze the pan, by the way, with either Chenin Blanc, Sauvignon Blanc, Picpoul Blanc.
Awesome.
Okay. Just that little bit of acidity makes it.
Oh, yeah.
Different story, different show.
That is we'll get there. We'll talk about food.
But I mean, I found that drinking wine, my palate has completely changed. My smell has changed. Everything has changed, and I've noticed that from drinking wine.
Well, you're talking about your palate. I mean, I'm like most people that start drinking wine. Mine, I prefer the sweet, and he has given me all sorts of static on that. But mine, it has changed now, and Texas wine has been the one that done that, because the tannins in it. That's what I've never liked about the dry.
Yeah.
And Texas dry, some of them still have it, but a lot of them don't. And it's like, I really like it. And then, like I said, the palate, the flavors are starting to come through more than they did when we first started drinking.
Yeah.
And the nose of it. And so that's what I work with a couple of young ladies, and they've talking about the same wine, and that's what I like to take. And when we go and do these things, go back and talk to them, and they're excited to when one day we get to go and do a wine tasting. And so I'm excited to take them to do that, or maybe even after this, be able to do it myself with them.
Sharing it with other people is one way that wine can sink in a little bit deeper. Everyone has a really different way that they need to learn about wine. And so it seems like yours is sharing it with other people and working through ideas and working through flavors and working through the passion with other people. I had a really different experience when I was first learning about wine. I was in a tasting group where there were so many ideas shared and passed that I was very easily swayed. And so my personal experience with tasting wine is I became a better taster when I stopped tasting with other people. And that's the foundation of it all, is we all have to come into learning how to taste wine, keeping our own personality and our own needs at the forefront of it all. Right. So if you're ever sitting in a wine class and someone says, this is how you have to taste today because it's the best way to taste, I can only make recommendations based on what's best for me and what's best for other students that I've met before. And then you have to find it for yourself.
I totally agree. Most of the time when we go, it's either the three of us going to a tasting or just me and Hutch. And then that's what and he gets his selection and I get mine, and that way we can compare. And like you said, it's more personal, and you develop your own what you taste out of it, because you can read the list and it says you should be tasting this and this.
Yeah.
Okay. And then you kind of question your palate. They say I'm supposed to taste this. I don't taste that. But then you realize that that's not something that you have, that your palate is going to pull out.
That is what I want to get out and break down today. Yeah. When you see the tasting notes, should you agree with them?
No.
I personally, and I'm going to give my personal opinion on them. Those are the winemakers. And and not just the winemakers, but also he reads off the yeast that he used as well.
Yes.
And he puts that on the tasting notes, and he may not even get those flavors himself. He may get something totally different. He may got them. You may drink it and you may get sawdust or green grass or some off the wall stuff, I personally do not like tasting notes. I have come to the point in my wine journey that I do not like tasting notes.
We're hearing that more and more and more and more.
Yeah. In fact, actually, when people come into the tasting room, if they want to do a tasting, they let me randomly pour them wine. I tell them, shut the menu. Don't even look at it. I'll tell you what it is, but you can't look at the menu until after you've done your 5 tastings. And they actually have a better experience because then I get to talk to them about what they drink. And I get to explain to them. Actually, my favorite thing to tell people to do is after you've tasted it, and I'll have to demonstrate this with you. Got to do it off camera. But when I show them how to taste and smell and everything, I tell them the minute you taste it, don't think, say the first thing that comes to your mind.
Yeah.
And when they do that, it's like they just got awakened from this big slumber in their whole life. And it's amazing to watch that look on their face when they do that.
Yeah, you have to tap into that artistic brain for everyone. Artistic. An artistic brain, you can look at several types of art. You can look at art that is, there's artwork on the wall back there. It's a United States map. It has different colors to it. There's intention behind that, where the artist was trying to show you concrete things. And then there's abstract art. And wine is abstract art, where you can ask the artist what they were trying to. Did I say winemaker instead of artist earlier? I think I did.
I think you did too.
But that's okay. They are artists.
Winemakers are abstract artists.
Yes.
Which is why if you say cherry is in this glass, it's going to be a cherry aroma. It's not going to be a physical cherry that you can see. This is abstract art, where a white line on a painting could mean the person's pure childhood. And then the black splatter on the corner of the canvas means the end of that childhood. And that is totally personal to the artist. And whoever's looking at that painting is encouraged to come up with their own view of it. Does that mean that white paint was not used? No, of course, the white paint was used. The white paint is there. Everyone's interpreting it differently. The same thing is true of wine, where the things in the wine are all concrete. The amount of tannins, the amount of acidity. No one can say low acidity and then another person can say high acidity and both people be right. Everyone's experiencing it differently. The things in the glass are concrete, which means there are tools for us to be able to blind taste and say, these are the things that I notice in the glass. And that's how I can tell that this is Mourvedre in the glass.
That's why they call this the palette. It's the same thing with an artist before they paint anything. That's sometimes called a palette, because guess what happens? Like you said, that artist paints whatever is coming through. The same thing with a bottle of wine so you cleanse your mind. You say you don't read cedar. You put that aside and close your eyes or smell. And going back to what Will was talking about, memories. I mean, you may get and you smell that and you remember the trip to wherever, or you remember somebody's anniversary. And that's what it's all about. But a individual has to make that. Yeah. That's there. The 4 of us could drink a bottle and come up with 4 different ideas, but we're still enjoying it. We're enjoying somebody's painting.
Yes.
And
that's what it's all about.
Did we just get philosophical on everything?
That's what wine is. I mean, wine is art and philosophy.
It's amazing.
This is what makes wine confusing and difficult is I think people try and enter into a class and reconcile wine and make wine fit into the box that they've brought into class. It is art appreciation.
Yes.
But that's the
you
way
can hold up a collection of grapes and say, this is my brush. And people go, oh, what do you mean? Hey, you just opened another door.
And then we get into, we're talking about the people impact on wine, the winemaker, the grape variety that you're using. There are also components in the earth and the soil and climate that are also, adding paint to the canvas.
I think that's what makes Texas wines so unique. is our soil, our regions, because we are so diverse
Yeah.
Yes.
in there. And so going back to the palate, we have so many different palates for the artist, the winemaker, to use. And that's what people don't understand about Texas wine. It's not going to be like any other wine that you taste.
Our palette of paints is...
I know, and going back to the box, you can't put any wine in a box. I mean, figure you can, but I mean,
highly manipulated wines you can.
Because it's going to be all over the place. Yeah. It's not a category you could do it because the different varieties and the soil and the maker, the painter, the artist, they're going to do something totally different with it.
Yeah.
And that's what's fascinating to us. We've talked about this many times. Sitting around drinking. This is
the constant tone and discussion of Texas wine. Is what paints do we have? What colors and shades do we have on our palette to paint Texas wine in the way that it is? And we're mixing metaphors here, but I love it. I'm a metaphor person.
I mean, it's great that we're doing this because there are people out there that are not at our levels. We're all four of us are at different levels.
We've done this before,
but we able to talk to people. And they're going to listen to the show and they're going to get that aha moment. Or they come to your class and they get that aha moment. And that's what's the reward of this whole thing. It's just that aha moment when that finally clicks.
Yeah. There are a couple of times that happens with wine. I think the first is when you first get into wine, it's usually through a gateway drink or something. A lot of people's gateway wine is a very sweet wine. or low price or boxed or something. It's not for everyone. Right. I mean, if you grew up in a household where it was very fine European wine all the time, it may be completely different. Then people tend to journey into white and rosé wines that don't have the harsh tannins that you were talking about earlier. And then they jump into light, fresh red wines and then bolder red wines and big, bold, really tannic red wines. And then it's really interesting. People will often after that turn back to white wines and then sweet wines again. And actually, I love sweet wines. I love starting out that discussion in a Wine 101 class because it is everyone's personal experience has such an influence on how they taste. We have to appreciate all the styles to meet everyone where they're at.
Well, like I was telling Will, because he was getting, lecturing about drinking sweet wine. There is a time and a place for your sweet wine. There's a time and a place for your dry. And so
sorry.
And sometimes during the summertime, you want a sweet wine that you can sit outside and just enjoy the afternoon. And then sometimes it's time for a dry one.
It's all time and place.
Yeah.
But everyone has a journey through different wine styles. And it's very similar, people's journey through understanding how tasting notes work for them. Right. Everyone has a journey that's similar to what I just described. There are different ways to approach wine tasting. And what I see is, and this was with myself and what I see in my students now, is that people will taste wine in one way when they come in, and then they jump to the next way, and then they jump to the next way, and they jump to the next way. And that's what I wanted to touch on a little bit today.
Okay. Well, so let's start down that journey. So let's first talk about proper tasting etiquette. Okay. So from my readings from both Wine Folly and online and discussions and everything like that, I see, and this is what I perceive from everything else, is dry sparkling or rosé sparkling first, kind of clean and prep the palate, and then you do your whites, and your rosés, and then your reds, and then you do your sweets, and then you do your sweet sparkling at the end. Is that proper or improper, or is that just...
That is traditional.
Okay.
I love to break tradition.
Oh,
yes.
I would never have known that. But I like it about you.
Love to break tradition. When you are pairing food and wine together, I'm going to jump to something that seems unrelated, but this is related.
Okay.
When you pair food and wine together, you are using components in food to change your perception of the wine. You can also pair wines together, which means that if you take a sip of one wine and then sip the next wine. The second wine will change based on the first wine that you sipped. It's the same as taking a bite of food and then tasting the wine. The wine will taste different than it did before because of that bite of food. Wine has a lot of the same components as food.
Yep.
It has acidity. It has bitterness. It has weight and body. It sometimes has sugar. It has alcohol. All of these things affect your perception. So my favorite way to line up wines is based on the food that you are eating. And if there are several courses, you don't have to stick to sparkling and dry rosé first and then go on. That is the most traditional way. However, if you have a white wine that pairs really well with your first salad course, and then you have a red wine that's going to pair best with your second course, which may be a seafood, and you want to introduce a light, fresh red wine that's kind of a cool, off-the-wall seafood pairing, and then you want to go back to a rich white wine and maybe white wine and red wine together for the third dish, you can do that. All you need to do is consider how the wine and the food in the previous course is going to set you up for the next wine. You can do really simple things like cleanse your palate in between courses. Introduce a cheese course and it resets everything.
Okay, so I don't know if you noticed this or not. My brain just went into overdrive.
I saw something going on back there.
That's a cloud above his head.
So I didn't realize I was doing this until you just said this. So when people come in and do random tastings, or I do give them random tastings, I always go non-heavy acidic to heavy acidic. And then,
keep going.
And then I'll go low acidic rosés to a little bit on the sweeter side, or the semi-sweet rosés. And then I do that with the whites. I just realized I do that and never realized what I was actually doing. And I'm sitting there like, I've been doing this whole time, starting basic and going into heavy. And I'm like,
I love it.
Never even realized I did that until just now.
Do you recommend, not pairing with the food, if you're just going into a tasting? And I never thought about it until right now, how tasting one wine and then you go into the next, how it's going to change it, anything. So I guess you recommend that you cleanse your palate between your tastings so you get the true flavor of that next wine.
Absolutely.
Because most places you go, they don't give you, some of them they do give you the little crackers, or they get, but you never get the water or anything to clean it. So now you should ask for that. If you go in and do your just a simple wine tasting, get something to cleanse your palate in between. I like that because I never thought about that.
Take it into your own hands. Now that you know this, yes, order the oyster crackers. Ask for some crackers on your table. Charcuterie boards are wonderful for this because they have protein, they have salt, they have things that will reset your palate. And protein pulls things off your palates like tannins with red wine. So as you get into red wines, take sips of water in between, swish it around as if you're doing scope. Sparkling water is wonderful for this. So anytime you can, order sparkling water because it helps push things that are heavy and weighted off your palate. Protein will pull things off your palate. Salt will help reset things a little bit. The thing that you nailed is you started talking about acidity, and that's what it's about. It is not about the color of the wine. It's not always about the body of the wine. Of course, we tend to want to go lightest to heaviest, but I think it's much more important to consider tannin, acid, and sugar in wine because those are the things that will have the biggest effect on your next wine. So for instance, if you have a low acid wine and then you have a high acid wine, your second wine is going to taste so tart.
Yes.
And it won't taste very fruity, and it may taste sour in an unpleasant way. If you swap those, and I don't care whether it's white, red, rosé, purple, whatever. If you swap that and have a high acid wine that tastes bright and fresh and whatever it was supposed to be like because it's the first wine, and then you go to a lower acid wine, this second wine is going to taste fruitier and juicier. And then you have to consider where to go from there. You can't jump to something more high acid. It's sweetness is a big consideration as well. And I think you mentioned this. Ending sweet is always on tone. So if you have a semi-sweet rosé that you're pairing and you have one white wine, one semi-sweet rosé, and 3 dry red wines, you have a couple of options. You can put the sweet rosé at the end of the flight, or you can serve the semi-sweet rosé second, and then you have to introduce a palate cleanser so that your first dry red wine doesn't taste unpleasantly bitter.
Yeah, man, holy cow. We just went completely off the rail.
Yeah. What were we supposed to be talking about?
But this is what it's all about. Man, you're making things in my brain just start functioning faster than typical.
This is what I'm hoping to teach and impart to ambassadors of Texas wine. You should be able to go into a Texas winery and trust that someone has already tasted through all the wines and has identified, this wine in this flight isn't really shining and it isn't really tasting like it usually does. We need to do something in order to either pull that wine out of the flight because it needs to be shining, or switch up the order or introduce palate cleansers so that you can trust when you come in that the flight is built so for your best appreciation of it. Sometimes you have to take that into your own hand because they're not certified Texas wine ambassadors. They haven't been getting themselves into classes, or maybe they just don't know yet. Mm-hmm. Then ordering the charcuterie board, ordering the sparkling wine, all of that is really important to make sure that you're still getting your best experience regardless of how things were set up.
Well, so now that we've derailed ourselves, let's get back to this.
Really.
Well, not really. I mean, it's all about the tasting experience.
Yes.
And so
how to taste wine is what you asked.
Yeah, because
taste wine.
That's preparing yourself to go do a tasting is what the whole conversation started off of, and the next thing you know, we just went over here, and then we took a left. And
I did say that was okay.
Yeah, I know.
This is my favorite type of class. We've already learned more than I probably had planned for us in the first place.
But not just us, but our listeners will learn this. And that's what's even more, because now they're going to get excited. They're like, we need to go see this Kelsey chick, and we need to take some classes.
Talk her ear off and get her really distracted and talking about what we want. That's what I love.
Well, what I want and what I get is two different things.
This is a great example of how our classes usually go. You get a pin at the end, but what we talk about is entirely driven by who's in class and what they're interested in. And if you throw an engineer into a class, it is the most fun, can I just say? There are, the best question. This is why we get off track.
Sorry.
My mom's an engineer as well.
Are you ADD too?
I am ADHD.
I am too.
Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah. I have uphill later too. So,
you were talking about how you try this wine and it makes this wine taste, and I've noticed, and once again, I'm a rookie to this thing, but it just seems to be a growing idea in Texas wine to make blends. Mm-hmm. And it just seems like every time I talk to Will, he'll talk about another blend that he's found. And then he tells me sometimes up to 4 different tastes. And each one may be kind of on your palate. You might say, nah, but they throw them together. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah.
And it's, like I said, I see maybe more and more in the Texas industry, they're leaning to blends for whatever reason. And, it could be weather. It could be whatever that particular grape this year is kind of off. So we're going to do this. But that's another branch, if you will.
It's a whole another branch.
That's a whole different world.
Actually, that's a great idea for another podcast completely, is to just talk about blends and why they happen. And we can tie it to classic blending regions like Bordeaux. Bordeaux does blends for a certain reason. We're doing blends a lot because consumers ask for it. People love blends. When you see a red blend on a grocery store shelf, it is sure to sell. It doesn't matter what's in it. It kind of takes away some of the unsurety of wine.
Yeah, because people I don't want to get a cab, and because we all know that you can get cab from the same vine, give it to 4 different winemakers, and you get 4 different types of cab.
Yeah, and it's wonderful.
And it is. And a lot of people are insecure.
Because it's unpredictable as well.
Unpredictable too. Yeah.
Well, the blends, I think, takes away a lot of the, how can I put this?
The guesswork.
It breaks down the class. Because people,
that is true.
It makes it less ceremonious.
Yes.
Well, if you think about it, how many times you've watched a movie and you literally, I know, I do it. That you see them pouring a bottle of wine, and I pause it to see what they're drinking. Mm-hmm. And 9 times out of 10, it's a Cab or a Merlot every time. Do you do it too?
Oh yeah. Yeah, of course. I judge the whole movie based on that 5-second scene.
Oh, look at that. You bought that $5 bottle of Cab from the bottom of the shelf.
Yeah.
This is the movie.
I know this is kind of off subject, but that's the great thing about Texas wine too. It breaks down the classes.
Yeah, it really does.
And so, and with the tastings and going in and going back to the tastings, that's your first experience of the friendliness of Texas wines.
It's almost hospitable to do a blend.
I know it's a hospitality network, but still, there's just something different about Texas flights and when they know what they're talking about and they tell you to. That's a whole totally different thing.
That's what we dig into in the advanced ambassador class is what really is the difference. We know that Texas wine is different. All of us know that Texas wine is different. We've tasted it. We've had that experience. There is such a deep dive into why that we can't get into in the short amount of time that we have here. But soil is definitely the place to start. Soil and climate. Soil
in Texas is just crazy because I know over, let's say, North Texas, okay? One side of the 35, they have one type of soil, and you go to the other side of the 35, and it's a totally different soil. And you're like, I just walked 20 feet.
I know.
It's crazy.
And Texas is so big. How many 20 feet can you walk across all of Texas? It's impossible to talk about in one day.
Right. Well, even in
the entirety of Texas.
Even in their yard on the east side of y'all's property, under all the trees on the far side of y'all's house, that's dirt right there. And on the other side, y'all have a lot of sand on it.
On the west side,
Yeah. Like it's on the same property. Oh, man, we can get so much, man.
Yeah, there's so much.
That's a geology class right there.
That's another class.
That's basically what half of our class is just geology. I had to talk to 3 separate geologists to become a little miniature version of a geologist myself, and I couldn't even dare call myself that. But that is the understanding that it takes to really figure out Texas wine. It really does.
Man, we started talking about tastings, and next thing you know, we're talking about soils.
So if you are trying to taste Texas wines and reconcile why things taste the way they do, there is a point where you have to recognize certain things in the glass. And these are terroir pieces. It's how the land expresses itself through the wine. And this is where we have to talk about wine tasting first in order to reconcile why these things are happening. The wine tasting piece gets really, really interesting. So as I mentioned, there are several stages that I see students go through where they're tasting wine one way, and I encourage them to start tasting in this way, but then I change it partway through. As people get more advanced, I change my recommendations. Start tasting in this way, start trying these new things, start speaking in a slightly different way about how you're talking about wine, because it helps another person understand you a little bit better, or it will help you tap into other things that you haven't tapped into in your sensory memory yet. Or you can start to categorize the things that you're saying into, this has to do with winemaking, and these things that I'm saying has to do with the grape variety, and these things that I'm saying have to do with the wine's aging. And so wine tasting isn't just you learn how to taste and then you're done. It is something that you progress through as you learn more. Right. So when you start tasting, what I recommend is just focus on your immediate reaction. You said this at some point, just spit out the first things that you notice about the wine. And at that time, I encourage you to be vocal and to use whatever words you have to speak about the wine. It could just be a couple things, and then listen to other people and slowly add to that. So It is what we call impact.
Right.
Not the wine's flavor, not the wine's smell. It is the wine's impact on you. And so the Texas Wine Ambassador certification course starts with impact notes. We don't use tasting notes during the class unless we get down a rabbit hole, and then we do. But we use, like this, very typical for a class, we start to use impact terms. So instead of saying cherry and strawberry and all of these things, is the wine fruity? Yeah, it's fruity. If we're talking about specific fruits, the wine is fruity overall, and that's where you start. I think the first step for wine tasting for many people is feeling comfortable saying anything out loud. And until that happens, you just can't get to the next step.
Well, and again, I teach people who come in that don't understand wine and they want to learn more about wine. And when I tell them to say the first thing that comes out to their mind, sometimes you sit there and you watch them and you literally see their eyeball just rolling in their head. I'm like, you're thinking too hard. Yeah. I was like, you're thinking too hard. Stop thinking. Don't even think. Just the first thing that comes to your mind. Just say it. I don't care if it's dirty or whatever. Just say it.
Yeah. And
then once you do that first word, then the rest of it will start flowing on its own.
Yeah.
And people are learning. Again, it's a process, especially when people are trying to learn for the first time. They don't want to be judged for what they're going to say.
Yeah.
I mean, if you say it tastes like asphalt, great, you licked asphalt, or
good for you.
But some of the tasting notes say you taste asphalt. Yeah. And actually, have I ever told you my experience about how I found the epiphany I had about asphalt and the taste?
I guess not.
So I love the story. So in Grapevine last year, it was really, really hot outside. And it came a micro rain burst and hit the asphalt. And I was standing outside and I started smelling the asphalt. And I'm like, that is what asphalt tastes like. You never thought about that, did you?
That's step 2 is smell as many things as you can. If it's asphalt after it rains, it's asphalt after it rains.
Yes. But then, what that did? That triggered another memory growing up as a kid playing baseball, in Breckenridge. Mm-hmm. It's a dirt field, and we were out there playing baseball. It was hot. It came a rain burst, and when the rain hit the dirt came up, and we were smelling that dirt. So it triggered another memory from another time.
Well, that's the earthy smell.
Yeah.
Do that. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, it triggered a whole new smell, new thought. And that's why I tell people, always say the first thing that comes to your mind, because it's going to bring something to you.
Yeah. The first thing that comes to you is the thing that's very personal. This is the start of figuring out wine tasting, is pulling out your personality and expressing it. And there's such a shyness that people have when they come to wine for the first time. Unless they've already broken through that shyness, there's a reluctance to tap into your personal experience and use it to appreciate the wine.
That goes back to the wine notes. Excuse me. That's like, I like what he says. Don't read those. We've stopped reading them. Because you go in there first time. Oh, well, I'm supposed to do this. No.
Yeah.
You may not. You may not get any of those notes they say that. You may get something totally different.
Yeah.
And I think that's where people are shy about, like you said.
Yes.
Speak out what you get, not what the notes say.
That's where it all starts, because wine is personal, but there is a reason why wine is personal, and you can also blind taste and call what a wine is. So at some point, like with WSET, you start using a unified language to speak, a universal language to speak about wine, which means that if there's cherry in the glass, you're expected to pull out the cherry. So how do you get from one to the other?
That's a good question.
That's the shift. And there's a reason why you can do both and use both. And they're both valuable for really different reasons. So wine is personal because when we smell something, we are using our sensory memory to pull out what that is. This means that we can have the same wine in front of all of us. We can smell it and everyone's going to say something different. Right. And everyone will be right because their sensory memory has defined how they perceive certain smells. This also means that if you take something more concrete, like lavender, like dried lavender, and you put it in a jar and you seal it, and none of us know that it's dried lavender, and we each smell it, we will all say that it's different things. Maybe one of us will call lavender. One of us will call black pepper. One of us will say that it's some kind of herb that they use in cooking. It is 100% dried lavender.
Okay.
But we will all personally understand it differently.
Right.
I like what Will was talking about, the smells, because I was fortunate to do time over in Europe and Spain specifically. And I have tasted some Texas red wines, and the first memory that pops forward, because my brain is kind of already in that gear.
Yeah.
And that, I don't want to say that I use that as my control group, but my brain will go, wow. And then the synapses connect and then say, you remember when, and I flash back to, say, a cafe in Madrid or a street in Argentina or something like that. But it's the wine, and it's that one taste. And then my brain goes, okay, what else is in there? And it starts going through and say, oh, now this is going to stand alone. But the first sip of anything, water, milk, whatever, your brain, because that's a sense, that's one of the major deals. And so your brain says, hey, good time, bad time, fun time, loved ones. But that's what I say on the Texas wines, you're talking about cabs. Each one's going to be different. Each one's going to have its own nuance to it. It's the same thing when you go to taste any of your favorites. So you have to go in clean mind, clean palate.
Yeah.
And my thing is, I see a bottle of wine, I'm going to enjoy it. Okay, that's my first goal. And then everything just falls into place. Whether I enjoy it a lot or I go, let's move on.
Well, so I have to give a little funny story because, I can't go without telling a funny story. So Christy at Lonesome Vine, every time I go out there, and we'll sit out there and be drinking wine, and she likes to pull out this little box that's got little scented oils inside of it. And it's all about like chocolate and roses and all that kind of stuff. And and it's got a number on the bottom of it. So we don't know what it is.
Yeah.
She pulls it out. She knows what it is by looking at it, and she'll pass it around to all of us. There'll be like 8 of us at the table. We're all been drinking wine, and she goes, smell this and tell me what y'all think. And every one of us will smell like, we'll say
clue.
No clue what it is. We'll all have something different to say. And then when she says, oh, well, it is rose petal, and then she passes it back around, and we smell rose petal at that moment, which means, first off, power of suggestion. She could have told us it was, crayon. Yeah. And we would have smelled crayon, but she does that to us every time I go out there. Thanks, Christy.
It's interesting that happens even after, no, I don't know what I was going to say. It's interesting that happens.
ADD just kicked in.
It really did.
Kicked in.
It'll do that a couple times. The way that we store memories is when we interact with something for the first time, we're curious about it, and we have heightened attention because of that, which makes it more likely for things to be stored in here. If we're interacting with something new and we don't give curiosity and energy towards it, we don't remember it. But when we are trying to remember something, say it's the first time we've ever had a strawberry. We have a strawberry. We are perceiving it in multiple ways. We are touching it, so we remember the feel of the strawberry. When we put it in our mouth, we have a feeling of the crunch of the strawberry, and everyone can feel the seeds in their teeth right now and feel the crunch of an unripe strawberry and a ripe strawberry because we've had multiple experiences with them. We understand the look of the strawberry, and when we smell it, we smell the strawberry as it was in that moment. And then every experience after that, we kind of add to our picture of the strawberry. When you remove 4 of those things and only have smell, all of a sudden we're lost. It's like we've forgotten how to swim completely. And we're just like waiting in unknown. All the smells that we've ever smelled in our lives are all converging, and they're trying to find something visual to pick up on. So when you do really interesting sensory research, it's when you put the dried lavender in the jar and you make it so that no one can see the dried lavender. And then you put it in a jar that is a certain color that's different than dried lavender. If the jar is purple, you're more likely to call it lavender. If the jar is bright pink or black or blue, you are much less likely to guess dried lavender, and you're more likely to go based on the color stimulus. It's how we categorize things in our mind. So when you're first tasting wine and you're first learning about how to do tasting notes and things, my recommendation is impact notes. The second stage is smelling everything that you earthly can with your eyes closed.
Okay, so that's funny you actually say that, because I have actually started doing that now when I drink my wine. When I first smell it, I will literally close my eyes and smell it now.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know why I started doing that in the first place. I just started doing it.
Try doing it with food, like in the grocery store. There's something called the grocery store method that was, don't be weird about it. I can see exactly what you're seeing in your mind right now.
I can see the produce manager coming, what are y'all doing?
Produce, pick up a bell pepper.
Yeah.
It's do it in your own home first. Yeah. It's the reason those kits with the smells are, I think, really great, and also can leave something desired, because the smells that they're bottling are the smell of a rose petal from a certain rose at a certain bloom, in highly concentrated form. Right. Rose is really delicate. So when you smell something like a rose oil, you're not smelling it as you actually would in wine, because then you're introducing all these other aromas and the rose will be very delicate. Rose oil is not the same as this type of rose or this type of rose, or wilting rose, or rose when it hasn't bloomed yet versus rose when it is fully in bloom. All of those are totally different. And my recommendation is to find the roses in your life at all the different stages, let them wilt a little bit and don't throw them away, and then close your eyes when you're smelling them. And then the additional trick, you don't have to smell wine to get better at smelling wine. You have to trick your mind into storing smells, your sensory memory, in different ways without using touch or sight or all of these other things. So play some really, really ruckus music in the background as you're smelling the rose, and close your eyes and be thinking about something totally unrelated to rose. And do that as often as you can, and your mind will more quickly come to rose in the future.
So, Mom, that means now at the florist shop, you need to be playing some heavy metal music now?
I love heavy metal music and rose. There's just something so shocking about it.
I try to play. Yeah.
It breaks us out of the norm. When we think of smelling a rose, I think of classical music. I've put those together in my mind based on like cultural suggestion, the way that society thinks of roses is in certain settings. It's just like the red blend conversation. We think of wine as
classical music.
You would probably know much better than I, but I think of special occasions when I think of roses. I think of Valentine's Day. Lilies make me think of something totally, sorry. But that's the way that it has been suggested to me to think about rose. And so all that makes it more difficult to find rose in a wine glass.
And when you talk about your senses, each one is strong, like from 1 to 5, one going to be the strongest, but that's different. With me, visuals. And then, and actually, my last is my taste buds. Because if I smell grass, I'm not tasting the grass. If I hear a bird, I'm not tasting the bird. So when I look at wine, first thing I do is I like the color. Oh, that's a whole, he's taught us this. Sunlight, look at it. And then that says, okay. And then what happened? You know, what's next? Then I go to the nose. Then I'll look and, there's different things. And then tasting is kind of like everything lines up. Okay, now taste it. Take the taste and come back up to here. What did that do for you? Yeah. And I'm going to tell you, 9 times out of 10, it all lines back up to one thing, saying, this is a unique bottle of wine.
Yes.
And I'll have more. I mean,
that's what it ultimately is. If you are not interested in formally tasting wine to come up with conclusions, there's no point in getting to the second stage. You can always stay in the first stage where you're just saying what you feel about the wine and what you notice, and then answering the question whether you like it or not. Yeah. And you don't have to go any further ever. There is pressure, I think, to go further to be able to assess wine at a certain level. it's helpful to understand how professionals talk about wine, but unless you're trying to make assessments yourself, you don't have to go full ham into it if it's not useful to you. And like you said, everyone's going to do it in a very different way. You're going to use the senses that you are strongest in to identify and bond with the wine in the same way that I am. And then we're each going to use it for our own different purposes. And at some point in class, we have to recognize that individuality and then use that as a tool. Man. And I have so many stories of people who I have worked with a master sommelier who says that they failed the introductory sommelier exam the first time because they had a lot of trouble pulling out specific aromas in the wine. It's something that they've never felt good at, and still they've gotten better at it. Of course, they're a master sommelier, but early on they had to use the tool of taste in order to figure out the wine. So instead of smelling cherry and ripeness and rose in a wine, they were going for body, sugar content, acidity, tannin level, because that's what they could understand. Right. And then they became a master sommelier because of that. And then I've had students in class who have hearing or seeing trouble. And so learning about wine and learning in general and going through life is a completely different experience. Right. When someone is hard of seeing, looking at the color of the wine is not going to be the best way to determine, is it age worthy? Has it already been oak aged before? Is it an old wine? Is there sediment in it? They would have to use other tools in order to come to the same conclusions that everybody else would about wine. I'm going to see sediment and think, oh, this is an aged wine. That person is going to smell and taste the wine and say, wow, I can feel sediment on my tongue right now. And so I know it's there. Right. Same conclusion, two totally different ways. And that applies when one sense is completely gone or just partially gone or just your weakest sense. Right. We do not do enough of that in wine classes because one full day doing the WSET level 1 certification, there is not enough time to go into how personal wine is. And so that's why I wanted to talk about it today. You have to use your personal tools to come to wine. And that way we can all come to conclusions together using what we've got. And then we can work on different senses to help, like we can all look at a wine and I can tell you what to notice in it that tells you certain things about it. And so adding to theory is the way to strengthen your senses. And then drilling, like I told you about with the smelling. Smell things with your eyes closed, play music while you're doing it, jumble up your senses. These are fundamental drills where if you never smelled wine before and you did all of these things and you made your sensory memory and your sense storage so concrete and foolproof, you'll come to smell wine and you'll be able to pick out every single thing.
I just had a funny thought. How many wineries do you go to and there's a jukebox in the corner? 0. How many
should
do you go
be
into?
It's a great idea.
Violin music, or and you're, now let's go a little bit further. You go into Louisiana now. What is their music? It's Zydeco. So you hear that a lot. And what does that kind of do to you? You're tapping your foot. What you said about music and wine, that's because we all have our tastes of music, but we can all share a bottle of wine or an experience on that. And I'm going to experiment with that personally. I'm going to, instead of maybe listen to the birds chirp or something like that, I might have something a little bit going on and I might change it up. I'm not a big heavy metal fan, but I might play something like that just to make the brain go, wait a minute.
You play guar. If you're going to drink wine, drink it with guar. You know who guar?
No.
You know who guar is?
Should I?
Yeah.
That's another podcast.
That's a whole different. That's a whole different experience.
That's a whole different.
I know a lot about wine, but if we dip into music, I can tell you the different types, and that's it.
I love music. I'm a music file. So, and he was talking about the jukebox. Have you been to Tatum Cellars yet? Mm-hmm. I love that he has that record player there, and you come in. I walked in there. He was playing 9 Inch Nails, and I'm like,
yeah.
Am I in a tasting room?
That sounds about right.
But yes. You know where I was going with that somewhere.
That taps into, that's not just hearing, that's emotion. I mean, music is one of the things in life that causes for you to feel emotions that you felt in the past, sometimes brand new emotions. And then that causes you to interact with wine separately. I mean, we have 5 senses, but emotion is a whole nother. It can be a tool. It can be a burden. It can be something that blocks you from interacting with a wine. I think fear as an emotion is something that just puts a wall up.
Yes.
And so finding the things, whether it's meditation, whether it's other forms of stress relief, music, all of these things can help break down that wall and cause you to like a wine more.
Yeah.
Just because you're feeling a different way. All of that plays into it. And then hospitality comes into, I mean, how often do we not like a wine because it wasn't served by someone that we liked, or we had a nasty interaction at the beginning of the tasting, or something, there was a misstep in the day. It doesn't even have to be in the tasting room. If your dog dies and you come in to taste wine, are you likely to like any of the wines?
You know,
I don't know.
When I go into a tasting room, and this is me personally, you know, all the stuff you talk about there, you know, do we not like the hostess or the hostess? You know, are they being mean or whatever? We didn't like how they smell. Honestly, I don't allow that to affect. This is me. This is not for everybody, but I don't allow that to affect the way I'm drinking wine, because their day, I like to say it's not in my bubble. So they're not in my bubble, so it's not going to affect my experience. I mean, they can give me the worst service area. They can, what's that restaurant called? Dick's Last Resort. They can be 100% like that, and it will not affect the way my
great,
wine.
terrible service.
It is.
Purposely.
But it's not going to affect the way I taste my wine. The wine, it's all about, you know, the winemaker, how I made it, my experience, my bubble. Okay. You're in my bubble, then you'll affect it. If you're not in my bubble, you won't affect it.
That takes years of experience to master. That's emotional maturity, which not everybody has. We were talking about doing the smell research, and that is auditory maturity. So it's everyone's at a different point where they're taking things like smell, sight, hearing, emotion, and building up a more mature relationship to all of them.
You talk about your moods. I have noticed that come home just dead tired and open a bottle of wine, and it's like, and it's one that I've liked and enjoyed before, and it's like, it just doesn't taste right today.
Yeah.
And so because that was related to a happier moment or something like that. And so when you're in, you know, a tired mood, you almost got to find your own wine for those moods to drink at that time.
Yeah.
I hadn't really thought about it, but really, you know, yeah, you know.
I've come up with a new idea, a mood ring that tells you what type of wine you're in the mood for.
That would be awesome.
That would be a great marketing thing.
Don't tell anyone.
Okay. Well, it's between me and you and everybody else that listens to the show.
Yeah.
So I know we talked a lot here and covered a lot of stuff. Do we actually hit everything that you wanted to talk about?
Probably
or
not.
Or do we actually go off so far topic?
Yeah, we got through everything I wanted to talk about. I mainly just wanted to make the point that if the wine is the same in all of our glasses, we can all taste it totally differently because of our sensory memory. But becoming a wine professional and assessing wine professionally means that at some point we need to learn a universal language and speak about wine in the same way.
Right.
This is only useful if you are trying to professionally assess wine. And that's what we get into with WSET. So I can take sensory memory that's different per person and mold it into wine professional language.
Wow.
And it's where you're using your individual perceptions of the wine to come to the same conclusion and say it in the same way.
Nice.
So
Yes.
wine tasting is personal and it's also not.
Right.
And that's just the point that I wanted to make.
See, I think that was a great closing right there. Absolutely.
It was.
It was a really
We needed
good
like
closing.
a gong or something
Like-
to go off.
Like, kind of like,
Yeah.
like very nice.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what, Kelsey, we've been doing this, man, it's already been an hour. Can you believe that? This is why I love doing this show, because I get to sit here and talk to people like you, and we get to have very great, stimulating conversation here. And next thing you know, we've burnt through an hour. Actually, how long has it been? We're looking at an hour and 15 minutes. Wow, that's what I just said.
You told her she had 2 hours to talk.
Well, so we have 2 hours, but we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back. We're going to talk about the next segment about food and wine pairing.
Super excited.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what. This is Will.
Kelsey?
This is Hutch.
Glenda.
And this is We Know Texas Vino. Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers.